All right, get ready because we're diving deep into something spooky today. Like, seriously spooky. We're talking about cursed objects, those things with a reputation for bad luck, weird happenings, and just creepy vibes.
It's a topic that really gets to how we interact with the things around us, especially the ones with a mysterious or kind of unsettling past.
For sure. And to guide our deep dive today, we've got this blog post from creepybonfire.com. It's called The Most Cursed Objects and Their Terrifying True Stories. Gotta admit, just reading through this thing, some of these objects and their stories, they sent chills down my spine.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, like this one, the haunted mirror from Myrtle's Plantation. Heard of it?
Myrtle's Plantation. In the world of, paranormal stuff, that place is legendary.
Right.
It's down in Louisiana, super steeped in history, and has this reputation as one of the most haunted places in America.
And right in the middle of all the spooky stories is this mirror. People say it holds the spirits of Sarah Woodruff and her children who are poisoned right there on the plantation. Imagine looking into that mirror and seeing their ghostly reflections staring back.
Oh, wow.
The blog mentions visitors reporting all sorts of creepy stuff, like unexplained handprints appearing on the mirror, sudden cold spots, and that feeling of being watched, like someone or something is right there, just out of sight.
It's interesting how the mirror becomes the focus for all these supposed supernatural things. In folklore and mythology, mirrors have a long history of being seen as portals to other worlds, or things that can trap spirits.
Oh, that makes the whole haunted mirror thing even creepier. It's like looking into another world, but who knows what's looking back at you from the other side.
Right. It's like a mirror is made to reflect us, but in a lot of folklore, it represents this super thin veil between our world and, the spirit world. Some cultures, they even cover mirrors after someone dies. They're afraid the soul might get trapped inside.
Okay, now that's seriously spooky. Makes you think, is it the mirror itself that's cursed? Or is it all the tragic history of the plantation that's kind of soaked into the mirror, giving it all that negative energy?
That's a question anthropologists and psychologists have been trying to figure out for centuries. Is it the object? Or is it us? Is it the meaning and the stories we attach to a thing that gives it power?
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards a little bit of both, Mm-hmm. But okay, let's move on to another object that caught my eye, Bella's skull replica. This one is just shrouded in mystery.
A replica. Now that's interesting. Why make a replica of a skull unless, the original had some real significance?
Exactly. The original skull was found way back in 1943 inside a wych elm tree in England. Nobody knows who Bella was, how her skull ended up there, or even how old it is. It's a total mystery. And the replica, even though the original skull is gone, it keeps that mystery alive.
It shows how fascinated we are by unanswered questions, especially when there's a real object involved. It's like that skull becomes this symbol of everything we don't know. A reminder that there are still secrets out there, hidden in the past, just waiting to be discovered.
It's like holding a piece of history, a direct link to a story that's still unfolding. But it also begs the question, why are we so drawn to these mysteries in the first place? What is it about an object like a skull that captures our imaginations?
Psychologically, objects can trigger memories. They can make us feel things, connect us to the past, even change how we act in subtle ways. And a skull, especially one with a mysterious past, it kind of taps into our primal fears about death, the mysteries of life and what happens after.
It's like we're trying to fill in the blanks of the story, give a name and an identity to something unknown. It's both fascinating and a bit unsettling. Wouldn't you agree?
Totally. There's this pull towards the unknown, a drive to understand the forces that shape our lives and the world around us. And sometimes these objects, with their mysterious pasts, they give us a glimpse into what we can't explain.
Okay, well, let's shift gears for a second and talk about something much, much older. I mean, something that predates most of our modern understanding, the woman from Lem statue. It's also known as the goddess of death.
Oh, wow. That statue is ancient. It's carved from limestone and was found in Cyprus. It's estimated to be over 6,000 years old. It represents, a fertility goddess, but somewhere along the way it got this dark reputation. That's how it earned the name Goddess of Death.
Right. And that creepybonfire.com article, it claims there's a whole trail of misfortune, even death, following the statue. Multiple owners have supposedly met some pretty terrible ends after getting it. It's like a real-life curse passed down for generations.
Yeah, the idea of a cursed artifact, something that can hurt its owner. It's a theme that keeps popping up throughout history and in cultures all over the world. We see similar stories in ancient Egypt with the alleged curse of King Tut's tomb and in folk tales and legends everywhere.
So it's not just us modern folks who are into the spooky stuff. It seems like people have always been drawn to the idea that objects can have power, good or bad. Is there a reason for that psychologically? Why do we give these objects so much power over us?
It's complicated, but one explanation could be magical thinking, which is basically the human tendency to believe that our thoughts or actions, or even objects, can influence what happens in the world, even if there's no logical link.
So, like, we're always looking for patterns, for a reason why things happen, even when they might just be random.
Yeah.
And when something bad happens, it's easier to blame a cursed object than to just accept that, well, sometimes bad things just happen.
Exactly. It gives us a sense of control in a world that can often feel chaotic and out of our hands.
I don't know about you, but after hearing all this, I'm starting to look at my own stuff differently. Like, that old vase I got from my grandma, is it just a family heirloom? Or is it a potential harbinger of doom?
Maybe it's both.
Hmm.
Who knows? But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. We've only just dipped our toes into the world of cursed objects.
So true. We've only just begun. And this next one, well, it's definitely for those with strong stomachs. It's Ed Gein's cauldron. Now, I'm going to keep the details kind of light here because Ed Gein, he was a really disturbing guy. He inspired some seriously dark horror movies.
Oh, yeah. His crimes were horrific. And the objects connected to him have become infamous because of that.
Exactly. And this cauldron, it's just a regular cooking pot, right? But because of what was found in it, well, it takes on a whole new level of creepy. They found human remains in it. So it goes from an everyday object to this chilling reminder of his crimes.
It reminds us that objects can take on the essence of the people and events they're connected to. Psychologists call this the contagion effect. Basically, it's the idea that a person's spirit or essence can be transferred to an object they touched or used.
So it's not just about the physical thing, it's about the energy, the history, the emotions that are kind of stuck to it. And in the case of Ed Gein's cauldron, those associations are super dark and disturbing. For a lot of people, it makes it a genuinely cursed object.
It becomes a relic of his crimes, a physical representation of the evil he did.
All right, I definitely need something less intense after that one. Let's shift gears to a story that's a little more modern. The Dybbuk box.
Ah, the Dybbuk box. This story mixes ancient folklore with, internet culture. This should be good.
So in Jewish folklore, a Dybbuk is basically this malicious spirit that can possess people. And this box, it's just a plain wine cabinet. It's said to have a Dybbuk trapped inside. What makes this story so wild is that it got famous through an eBay auction. The seller wrote this whole elaborate tale about the box's history, claiming it caused nightmares, illnesses, and strange events to everyone who owned it.
And that online auction, with all the descriptions and stories about paranormal activity, it just went viral. It really tapped into that fascination we have with the unknown, and the internet just amplified it.
It's almost like the eBay auction became part of the curse itself, adding this modern twist to an ancient legend. People all over the world were bidding on this ordinary-looking box, convinced they were buying something supernatural.
It raises some interesting questions about the power of suggestion. Can a good story actually change how we see things and what we believe? Do you think all that online attention actually made people believe in the curse more?
Oh, absolutely. The more people read about the box and the supposed things it could do, the more they believed it was truly cursed. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, all because of the internet. But before we get too lost in the digital world, let's talk about a cursed object that everyone knows. Annabelle the doll.
Ah, Annabelle. It's one of the most famous cases in paranormal investigation. It really shows how powerful objects can be, how they can become vessels for our fears and fascinations.
And just to be clear, the real Annabelle isn't that creepy porcelain doll with the evil grin that you see in the movies. It's actually a Raggedy Ann doll, which honestly makes it even creepier for me.
Yeah, I see that. That contrast between how innocent a Raggedy Ann doll looks and the evil thing it's supposed to be harboring, that's unsettling.
Totally. The doll belonged to these two nursing students, Donna and Angie, and things just kept getting stranger and stranger. The doll would move, it'd appear in different rooms. They even found handwritten notes that they swore they didn't write. Right. It got so bad they felt threatened. That's when they called in Ed and Lorraine Warren, those famous paranormal investigators.
The Warrens had a huge influence on how people saw the paranormal back in the 20th century. Cases like Annabelle, they brought those stories into the mainstream. Suddenly everyone was fascinated, but also scared of the unknown.
The Warrens, they figured Annabelle wasn't possessed by a human spirit, but by some demonic entity looking for a human host. They performed an exorcism, and took the doll to their museum, the Occult Museum in Connecticut. It's still on display there, locked up in a glass case with a sign that says, "Positively do not open."
Wow. That museum has become a kind of pilgrimage for people who are into the paranormal.
Yeah.
It's a real testament to the power of these objects and their stories.
It's crazy how a simple doll, something we usually associate with childhood and innocence, can become this thing of fear and fascination. It's like it messes with our deepest fears, turning something familiar into something sinister.
Yeah, like twisting something that should be safe into something threatening. That's a common theme in horror stories.
Right. Okay, let's switch gears to another object that got famous in a modern way, through an online auction. It's a painting called The Hands Resist Him, and honestly, just looking at it is enough to give you nightmares.
I've seen that one. It really seems to play on that primal fear of the unknown,
Yeah.
like being watched by something unseen.
Exactly. It shows this young boy and a creepy doll, and they're standing in front of a glass door. But there are all these disembodied hands pressed against the glass from the other side, like they're trying to get in. It was listed on eBay with this super creepy description. The seller said it was haunted and caused bad luck and illness. They even said the figures in the painting moved at night.
Oh, wow. And just like with the Dybbuk box, that eBay auction and the story, it went viral. People started debating whether the claims were real and talking about how just looking at the painting could affect you. It makes you think about how we see art and how a story can completely change our experience of it.
People who saw the painting online said they felt uneasy. Kids were scared of it. Some people even claimed to feel a presence in the room when they were looking at the picture. Is it the image itself, or are our minds creating these experiences because of the story we've heard?
That's the big debate, right?
Right.
Can some images create a universal response?
Mm-hmm.
Or are our reactions shaped by culture and personal experience?
This painting definitely got under a lot of people's skin, no matter their background. It makes you wonder, what gives it that power? Is it the artist's intention, the subject matter, or the stories about the painting?
Probably all of those things.
Here.
Art can make us feel strong emotions. It can tap into our subconscious fears and desires. And when you add a creepy image with a captivating backstory about where it came from, it can really mess with you.
Okay, we've got time for one last painting before we wrap up part 1 of our Cursed Object Deep Dive. This one is called The Anguished Man, and the story behind it is as dark as the title suggests. It shows a face just twisted in agony, like pure pain and suffering.
It really captures the essence of human anguish. And the legend about how it was made, it adds another layer of darkness.
The legend says the artist mixed his own blood into the paint and then took his own life. It adds this whole other dimension to the idea of art imitating life, or in this case, art reflecting death. The current owner, a guy named Sean Robinson, he inherited it from his grandmother. She kept it hidden in her attic for 25 years.
25 years.
Yeah, she thought it was evil.
I mean, I can see where she'd feel that way. The idea that an object can hold the essence of its creator, especially in such a tragic and disturbing way, that's pretty unsettling.
Oh, yeah. And she even claimed to see a shadowy figure in her house after she got the painting. But even with his grandmother's warnings, Sean brought the painting home. And since then, he and his family have reported hearing strange sounds, seeing shadows, and the painting even fell off the wall for no reason.
Huh. Those stories, even if it's hard to know if they're true, they feed into that belief that objects can hold a connection to the people who made them, even after they're gone. It's like the anguish and despair the artist felt are somehow imprinted on the painting itself. And those emotions, they can affect the environment around it.
It's like his pain is trapped in that painting, and it reaches out to anyone who looks at it. But is it really the artist's spirit causing all these weird things? Or is it Sean and his family's knowledge of the painting's backstory that's making them see and hear things?
That's the core question of this whole deep dive, right? Are these objects actually cursed? Or are they just reflecting our own beliefs, fears, and expectations?
It's like the chicken and the egg, which came first, the curse or the belief.
And that's something we're going to explore more in part 2. We'll dig into the psychology of belief, the power of suggestion, and how culture shapes our ideas about cursed objects. Stay with us.
Feels like we ended on a bit of a cliffhanger, doesn't it? That question, is it the object itself or is it us? Do these objects actually have power, or is it just like all in our heads?
I know, right? I'm totally hooked. We've talked about some pretty freaky stuff. Mirrors with spirits trapped inside, skulls with secrets, dolls that are like demon puppets, and paintings that just make you feel uneasy.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in all the spooky stories, but there's always that little voice in the back of your head saying, is it really a curse? Or is it just my imagination going wild?
And that's where it gets really interesting. We have to think about suggestion,
Yeah.
Our minds are amazing at finding patterns and making connections, even when they might not actually be there.
So, like, if we believe something is cursed, we're going to see everything that happens around it as proof of that curse.
Yeah.
Like, suddenly every creaky floorboard is a ghost, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not just what we believe individually, it's the stories we all share, the cultural stuff, like that Dybbuk docs. That story got so big because it was based on this old idea of evil spirits. And then the internet came along and just blew it up.
The online auction, it was like this weird feedback loop. The more people read about it, the more they believed it. The story itself almost became like contagious.
And that brings us back to the contagion effect, remember? The idea that an object can soak up the essence, the energy of the people and events it's connected to. So something linked to a tragic death or a bunch of bad luck, it might feel negative. Not because it's actually cursed, but because it's become a symbol of those bad things.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about those stories where people have weird experiences with an object before they even know anything about it? Like they inherit something and then suddenly they've got bad luck or creepy things start happening, and only later do they find out the object has this dark history. How do you explain that?
Those are the ones that really make you think, right? It's like, is there something else going on that we can't measure? Some kind of energy or vibration that science hasn't figured out yet?
Like there are these missing puzzle pieces, and they hint at this whole other layer of reality that we just can't see or understand. It's both fascinating and kind of scary, don't you think?
Totally. It opens up all these possibilities. But even if we forget about, like, supernatural curses for a minute, these objects are still super important. They're like cultural artifacts. They show us how human thought has evolved, what people believed in, and how we've always been fascinated by the mysterious and creepy stuff.
It's true. We've been focused on the spooky side of things, but these objects also tell us a lot about ourselves, about how we try to understand the world, even if it means believing in the supernatural or embracing the things we can't explain.
Yeah, they're like reflections of our anxieties, our fears, our hopes. Think about those common themes in cursed object stories. Death, tragedy, bad luck. These are things all humans experience, and we've been trying to make sense of them for centuries.
It's like these objects give a physical form to our fears. We can look at a haunted doll or a cursed painting and be like, there it is, the source of my fear. It's easier than dealing with the big unknown stuff, or the fact that sometimes bad things just happen randomly.
Exactly. And the stories we tell about these objects, whether they're passed down through families or spread by the media, they become part of the object's identity. They shape how we see it and what we experience.
So the story itself almost becomes the curse. The more we buy into it, the more likely we are to see things that confirm what we believe. But even if we don't believe in, like, actual supernatural curses, we can still appreciate the artistry, the craftsmanship, the history of these objects.
Of course. They're windows into the past, showing us the cultures and societies that created them. And they remind us that what we know about the world is always changing. What we think is superstition today might be tomorrow's big scientific discovery.
I love that there's still so much out there we don't know, so much left to discover. It keeps things interesting.
Absolutely. The unknown is where curiosity and imagination come alive. That's what makes studying cursed objects so captivating. It pushes us to the edge of what we think we know, makes us question our beliefs, and embrace the mysteries that are out there.
It's like we're always testing the limits of what's possible, expanding our awareness of the world and our place in it. So where does that leave us? Do we believe in curses or not?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I don't think there's a simple yes or no answer. It's more about understanding how belief, perception, and reality all work together.
It's recognizing that our minds play a huge role in how we see the world. And those experiences, they can be influenced by culture, personal beliefs, even the stories we tell ourselves.
Exactly. And sometimes the most fascinating mysteries are the ones that just don't have an easy explanation. They force us to realize that we don't know everything, and to be open to the idea that there might be forces at work in the universe that we haven't even begun to grasp.
Okay, well, this whole deep dive has definitely made me think about the objects I have in a new way. That old clock in my attic, maybe it's not just a family heirloom. Maybe it's like a secret time machine.
You never know. Or maybe it's just a reminder of the stories we tell ourselves, the meaning we give to the things around us, and how powerful our imagination can be.
I like that. And I think that's a perfect place to pause for a moment before we dive into the final part of our cursed object deep dive. We've heard the stories, explored the psychology, and now it's your turn. We want to hear from you, the listeners.
Yes. What do you think about all of this? Do you believe in curses? Have you ever had an experience with an object that had weird energy or a spooky backstory?
Share your thoughts, your experiences, your theories. We're all ears. Let's keep this conversation going because exploring the unknown is something we do together.
All right, welcome back to our deep dive into all things cursed. So far, we've covered haunted mirrors, mysterious skulls, a seriously creepy cauldron, a doll with a demonic vibe, and paintings that just give you the chills. And we've talked about how our minds and culture play a part in whether we believe in curses. Is the power in the object itself, or is it all about how we see things?
Right. And now we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts? Do you think cursed objects are real? Like, do they really have supernatural powers? Or is it all just in our heads, our beliefs and fears and all that?
Maybe it's both. What if some objects can, like, channel energy, whether it's good or bad, and our beliefs just make that energy stronger?
That's an interesting thought. Like, the object itself isn't good or bad, but it picks up the vibes of the people who own it, the emotions it triggers, the stories people tell about it.
Exactly. It's a back and forth kind of thing. The object, the person, and the stories, they all affect each other.
So even if we can't prove scientifically that something is cursed, we can't ignore the power of belief. It really can shape how we see the world.
It's true. And that's what makes this whole topic so fascinating. It makes us question what we think we know, explore those blurry lines between the known and the unknown, and be open to the idea that maybe, just maybe, there are forces out there we don't understand yet.
We've been talking about the psychology of curses, but there's a whole cultural side to this too, right? Throughout history and across so many cultures, there are stories about objects that bring good or bad luck, things that are sacred or forbidden. Why do you think these stories are so universal? Like, why do they pop up everywhere?
I think deep down we crave meaning and order. The world can feel chaotic, unpredictable, and objects, they become these focal points for our beliefs. It's like physical versions of the forces we think shape our lives.
So it's like we're trying to gain some control. If we know the rules of the curse, if we can figure out how to appease the spirits or avoid certain things, then maybe we can stay safe.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
It's about creating a framework to understand the world, even if that framework includes the supernatural.
So whether it's ancient superstitions or modern ghost stories, people seem to have always been fascinated by cursed objects. It makes you wonder if there's something built into us that makes us drawn to these stories, something that makes us want to believe in the possibility of, well, magic.
There's definitely a sense of wonder and mystery in these stories. It's like admitting that there are things we just don't know, things we can't explain. And that mystery, that possibility of something beyond our understanding, it's both exciting and a little scary.
It's like a good ghost story, right? It's not about proving anything. It's about the thrill of the unknown, that shiver you get when you think, what if it's real?
Exactly. And whether you believe in curses or not, you can't deny how powerful these stories are. They make us use our imaginations and question what's real.
Well, I don't know about you, but after all this, I'm definitely looking at the things around me differently. Maybe with a little more curiosity and maybe a little healthy skepticism too.
I think that's the perfect approach. An open mind and a critical eye. After all, finding the truth is a journey, and the most amazing discoveries are often the ones that shake up everything we thought we knew.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of cursed objects. We hope it's made you curious and that maybe you'll look at the objects around you and the stories they hold a little differently. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep an eye on those old things tucked away in your attic. You never know what secrets they might be hiding. Until next time.